Hello again. Thank you very much for joining me here on Movie Ninja. I'm trying out something just a little bit different, just to kind of switch things up a bit. So, what movie talk is just me just recollecting just how movies have impacted me and just, how I came to become such you know, a, a big fan of cinema in general. So, this is going to be a little bit like kind of like a story time, you know? And this one, you might be thinking, like, where did you get that title? Movie Buff Rival. So, I have always been an introvert. I've always been an introvert, and I've always just sought, like, refuge kind of in escapism, kind of in fantasy and things like that. And books, TV shows, and movies were always the biggest like facets for me, like for that. So when I was growing up, I definitely built up a very specific taste. A lot of like nerd media, a lot of sci-fi, a lot of fantasy, and like action movies and things like that. When I was in junior high, there was this guy that he was in my theater class, and he was always talking with the teacher, like after we do our like assignments and after we do all of our like rehearsals and things like that and learning how to block a scene and all this other stuff. um, in theater we had a lot of free time. We did. I don't know how it works out for other people, but we always had like free time. And I always saw him talking with like the teacher, not in a kind of like sycophantic way, but like in a way that where they were almost talking at about the same level. Now he would talk about like movies that I had never heard of, you know? The only movies that I was really aware of in my younger years were just like, like were the popular ones, like for the ones like for most kids, most kids my age. If it wasn't in the movie theater this week or last week, I probably never had watched it. But that was something that kind of got my attention about this guy. I'm just gonna call him D. 'Cause, I haven't like been in touch with him for years, but at the same time, I don't know. I'm not just gonna give away his information out there. But anyways, so this guy, I knew him from theater class, but also when I was a teenager, when I was in junior high and high school, about 100 years ago. Okay, maybe not that long. Sometimes it feels that way though. But anyways, when I was a teenager, I had this job as a bagger at the where we lived. There was an Air Force base, and I was a dependent, and so I was allowed to be a grocery bagger at our commissary. And so what that was is that you would, when people, just like you see in any grocery store, the people at the end of the line, they bag up your groceries and then they walk them out. But we did a little bit of extra service. We would walk the groceries out to your car for you, and we would load them up into your vehicle. And it was a good job for a teenager because you got to, just like pocket tips and like that. And it was just, like you could end the day out with like, I'm not kidding you, like for anywhere from like 40 to 80 bucks, just like it was pretty good. Like, granted that we only like worked after school, like and so like some days it would be like like $40 or $50, like maybe. It all depended on how much you bagged and how much you were tipped, and that is like. I'm trying to like some of you are doing the math, and it's like wow, that was extremely like lucrative for a teenager. Yeah, well, you also have to bear in mind is like a lot of cheapskates like just didn't tip. They just thought it was like an extra like luxury that we would do. Anyways, what does that have to do with movies? I'm getting to that part. So anyways, on my lunch break, I would go off to the base exchange. It's like a little shopping, it's like a mini shopping center for those who have never like been on like a military base. I would go to the base exchange, and the guy from my theater class, D, he'd be there. He'd be there, and on lunch breaks, he worked at a pizza parlor that was in the base exchange. And it's like sometimes we would just like talk about school, just whatever. But most of the time, we talked about movies. And like I said, this guy, D, he had an impact. He had an impact on me because he introduced me to concepts and ideas about film that I had never thought of before. You know? I like the way that he approached film was much more comprehensive than the way I like enjoyed movies. Because when I was like a teenager, I just saw movies like depending on if I thought they were fun to watch or not. It's like it's pretty shallow, but I was well within the 99 percentile of most movie watchers of that. But he saw movies as an art form. It's like, and yeah, like that might seem like, well duh, movie ninja. That's obvious. Well, not when you're a kid, But he would talk to me about like actors that I had never heard of. Anthony Hopkins. Who's that? I never heard of that guy. Probably hasn't been in a lot of movies. Like he would talk to me of like directors I had never heard of. Spike Lee? Spike Lee? No, I haven't seen any of his movies, but he sounds cool. Does he make kung fu movies? That guy sounds pretty boss. No, that's obviously it's not. That's not really like the case there. Harmony Cream, Harmony Kareem. I don't know, D. I think you're wrong about that one. That guy sounds like a basketball player. I don't know. Like maybe you got the name wrong on that. Anyways, so yeah, I didn't really have like, aside from the blockbusters that may or may not have been making their money back, box office wise week after week, I really didn't know a lot of movies that he was talking about. And so like we would have these conversations about like actors and their methodology and the way that certain directors write their scripts for their films and things like that. And this would be in two parts of my day. It would like, if he was on shift at the pizza parlor, I'd be pretty much just like chewing his ear while he handed out slices of New York style pizza in the BX, between customers, or usually after work, because the time I got off work, like around about the time that the commissary would close, was usually about the time that the BX closed as well. A lot of the stuff on the base was pretty like tightly scheduled, like pretty much like everything closed about the same time. And I would drop by to chat about movies while he waited for his ride to pick him up, and we would just talk and talk and talk about movies. Mostly, I didn't really bring much to the table in the very beginning. It was, just like talking about action flicks, talking about some of my favorite martial arts movies that I had seen. Whereas like he would, once again, he would kind of like talk about movies that I had never heard of, starring people I had never even seen in like any movie. Richard Dreyfuss? Who's that? I don't know. This guy sounds boring. Whatever. But, like he would watch movies that were more than 10 years old. Like, whoa, like he was almost like a history student to me, as much as he was like a theater student or an up and coming like film student. And so like he really opened my eyes to a totally different world, Well, Movie Ninja, you're making this guy sound like he kind of, like there's no rivalry at all. This guy pretty much was head and shoulders way more into movies and knew a lot more about movies than you did. That was the case for a while, for a hot minute, that was the case. But at a certain point, I got tired of being the guy that didn't know anything about movies. And so, kind of as we would have our conversations, I would look into movies that were like 20 years older than I was. I would look into movies about, you know, about about war and about relationships, love, affairs. I would look into like movies about from other countries, And at a certain point, we actually the more that I did this kind of like deep dive into extracurricular sort of like films, just kind of like I would rent movies from the library, and these would be, like I said, like these would be older films that I probably wouldn't have had any interest in, really, if like Eraserhead, or Blair Witch Project. That was kind of becoming like popular a little bit late. No, yeah, I was still in junior high. Yeah, but like independent film. What is that? What is independent film? And I looked into it. I would look into see these types of like movies that only the two of us at a certain point had ever seen. And then, we got upon the same level. We were on the same footing, like movie wise. And I thought that was so cool. And there was like, I would always, or I would routinely, I shouldn't say always, I would routinely start the conversation, hey, I just saw this movie. Have you seen this movie? And 9 times out of 10, he would say like, yes. It's like, oh yeah, I saw that like years ago. Like, yeah, what did you think? And then we would talk for about 15 minutes, 30 minutes, like however long that we could like talk. It was like one of the really big connections that only we had. He was a very special friend. I don't know if he ever like knew that. We've kind of kept in touch over like the years. To the best of my knowledge, he didn't really go on to like do anything like film related or film wise. He's doing he actually has a pretty secure and successful life in IT actually. I think he's actually an entrepreneur now, but that friendship, just talking over the counter at a pizza parlor, just talking about directors, talking about actors, talking about movies from different eras, from before either of us were ever born. That was something that actually really helped me to develop an appreciation and an appetite for movies of all different kinds of genres. On this channel, for anyone who goes to the library, I do have a very specific like niche of like everybody has the genres that they like and they gravitate closer towards, and I'm no different. I watch like a lot of different kinds of like movies, but I feel more comfortable talking about certain movies from certain genres. So but anyways, getting back to it, there was this one time and I watched a foreign film. It's called Run Lola Run. And I think we were in high school at that point. And Run Lola Run, for anyone who has never seen this amazing movie, it is about a young German woman who has to save her boyfriend with only the power of cardio. But as she runs, she is also with the power of cardio, she is able to bend reality. But anyways, like if you haven't seen that movie, watch it. It's great. It's really exhilarating. Anyways, so there was this one day that I just finished watching this Run Lola Run, and it was like different than any other movie that either of us had ever seen before. And I can say that because we're we met up as we regularly did, and the conversation went as it usually went. And, I started out the conversation, as we always did, and I asked, hey, have you seen this German film called Run Lola Run? And he said, no. No, I haven't seen it. Like, what can you tell me about it? And I felt like Rocky Balboa. Like, I felt like I was shocked. I didn't do anything like crazy. I was like, like jump up in the air. It's like, yes, yes. Now I am like, because for such a long time, he always was ahead in this imaginary race that he didn't know about, that we were in, that in a very quiet, secretive way that I had sort of like self-initiated, you know, with him, and that like I had finally seen a movie that he hadn't seen, you know, and that was just like in a very like in a very weird way that made me feel like a champion, because I had finally broadened my horizon beyond his knowledge and experience, and then I described the movie. I'm making it sound like this world-changing, life-changing event. Like, okay, admittedly, like it wasn't. However, but like it was a turning point. It was a turning point, and then like, and I never mentioned this to him. I never mentioned just kind of how the effect that those conversations and those meetups would have on me, as in my young adulthood, and now, and now where I am like today. It's still one of my favorite pastimes, especially it helps me sort of just like unwind after the day, just like watching something, Um, so yeah, my movie buff rival, kind of like unknowing to him, unbeknownst to him, he helped shape me. Our friendship helped shape me into the fan that I am of the artistry of film, and into the broad landscape of film. And yeah, admittedly, as a rivalry, it might be considered a bit of a stretch, but but for me, it felt like that. It felt like that in the best possible way, just because it like what it like for a few years, whenever we had this conversation, and whenever I like oh man, I just saw this one movie starring Kirk Douglas called Paths of Glory. Have you seen that movie? It's like, oh yeah, I really like that movie. This is from Stanley Kubrick, and that was like before his like the later portion of his career. And then there was nothing I could throw for a few years. There was nothing I could throw at this guy that he hadn't seen. That being said, I'm not trying to build him up to where like he like saw every movie that was like ever made. If he didn't see a film, it's just because he wasn't really like interested. He he definitely had a more expansive, when it was like he had a larger library of like films that he had like viewed, and that's it. Like it was just really intriguing to me. It's just like, to meet somebody that wasn't just watching movies because they were popular. And yeah, like I was that friendship, it helped sharpen me. It helped me to become more of the person that I am now. And these very like distinct interests that I have, and just and I've been able to like establish other friendships through the shared interest in like film from a wide variety of genres and like that. So I don't know if D ever knew that he had that effect. We've tried to stay in touch over the years, but it's been about, I don't know, 4 years since I've heard from him. I hope he's doing well, you know. Uh, but but yeah, it was just like having a quote unquote rival was something that actually had a very profound sort of effect, you know. Um, but anyways, that's it for episode 1 of Movie Talk. What about you guys? I'm gonna end this movie with like a question. What was the first foreign language film for like a movie from a language that you don't speak? What was the first foreign language film that you ever remember like watching? And did you like it or did you not like it? Uh, but that's how that's the question that I will leave off with this one. What was the very first foreign language film that you remember like seeing? Not only that, but I also just want to put something out here. Like this, just kind of like dynamic shift was kind of brought. Like I was kind of inspired by a good buddy of mine on YouTube, a fellow media critic, Justin. I'm gonna put a link actually down in the description for one of his more recent uh, reviews, "The Treasure of the Sierra Madre." He's a really cool guy, and like if you're looking at my video, like my review library, my video library, it don't like it's not more of the same. He's very casual, gentlemanly, laid back, like really, and like sophisticated. He enjoys watching like dramas, and I'm much more like escapist. That's sort of like my corner of media reviewing and media like criticism and like that. But still, like once again, and I haven't even like mentioned this like to him that I was gonna like try this out, but still, in a way, like he had a recent dynamic shift of like sort of checking in with folks on the weekend and then just kind of like just talking about different stuff. So I mean, you know, so that kind of encouraged me to try this. So here I am. Here we are. And anyways, once again, thank you very much for joining me here on Movie Ninja. This has been episode 1 of Movie Talk, and thanks for tuning in. If you made it all the way to the end, I appreciate it. But I hope you have a great weekend. At the time of this recording, it's Friday. I hope you have a good weekend, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.